I didn't expect the night of my promotion dinner to end with my mother calling me a fraud. The wine glasses were still clinking. The string quartet was playing Moon River, and my coworkers were cheering when she said it, loud enough for the entire dining room at the Belmont in Boston to hear. "Let's all raise a glass to Julia," she said, her voice thick with something sharper than pride. "Our family's little miracle, the one who cheated her way to everything she's got." 5 lines for my viewers. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you, please hit that like button. Share this video. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone. Subscribe if you believe family shouldn't mean unconditional suffering. Leave a comment. Tell me if you've ever had to stand up to your own blood. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just my story. It's how I learned to survive. I remember setting down my champagne glass and feeling the room tilt, not from alcohol but disbelief. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice breaking. My father avoided my eyes. My brother smirked. "You know exactly what I mean," Mom continued, waving her hand like she was brushing off a fly. "You think the hospital didn't call me? You think people don't talk? Everyone knows you got that research grant by sleeping with Dr. McAdams." Laughter died mid-air. My boss, Dr. Kellerman, froze mid-sip. My throat went dry. "That's not true," I whispered, heat rushing up my neck. "That's not even remotely true." Mom leaned back in her chair, satisfied. "Sweetheart, denial doesn't change facts." Something inside me splintered. The years of being the family scapegoat. The quiet mockery at every holiday. The way they credited my success to luck or manipulation instead of the brutal work I'd done to become a clinical psychologist. Dad cleared his throat. "Let's not make a scene." But there already was a scene. My coworkers were pretending to check their phones. The waiter stopped pouring wine. My brother Ryan leaned close to Mom, whispering, "Told you she'd crack." I stood up. My chair scraped against the polished floor, sharp as a gunshot. "You know what? You can all stop pretending. If you believe that, then I'm done trying to prove anything to you." Mom smiled, that thin, cruel smile she reserved for when she'd won. "Julia, don't be dramatic." I took off the pearl bracelet she'd given me for my master's graduation and set it beside my plate. "You can keep your pearls. You've been choking me with them for years." And I walked out, past the stunned guests, past the maitre d's raised eyebrows, out into the humid July night. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. But I felt something shift, like a rope finally snapping after years of strain. Outside, my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "You'll regret this." At that moment, I thought he meant emotionally. I didn't realize it was a threat. For 2 days after that dinner, I felt light. Not happy, just weightless, like I'd finally exhaled after years of holding my breath. I stayed in my apartment in Cambridge, answered emails, prepped patient notes for the trauma unit, and ignored the calls from Mom. But by Monday, something in the air changed. It started with an email from Dr. Kellerman, my department head. Subject, urgent. "Please see me today." When I walked into his office, he didn't even offer me a seat. "Julia," he said, adjusting his glasses, "the board received several anonymous complaints about your conduct." My stomach dropped. "Complaints? About what?" He handed me printed papers, screenshots of supposed text between me and a patient. The messages were explicit, sexual, disgusting. My number? My name. My tone, almost. But not mine. I stared at the pages. "These are fake," I said, voice trembling. "I've never—" "They were sent to the ethics board," he cut in. "And to the Boston Herald. They plan to run a story unless we get ahead of it." My brain stuttered. "This is insane. Someone's framing me." Kellerman sighed. "I've known you 6 years. I want to believe you, but the optics are bad. I'm suspending you pending investigation." "Suspending me?" I whispered. "Without pay?" He hesitated. "That's protocol." I walked out of the hospital numb. On the drive home, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A text? "You should have kept your mouth shut at dinner." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I blocked the number, told myself it was coincidence. That night, I tried to log into my bank account. Access denied. Account under review. My debit card declined at the grocery store. When I called the bank, the rep said calmly, "Ma'am, there were multiple reports of fraudulent activity. Someone claiming to be you called in last week to freeze your funds." "I didn't call." "I understand, but we'll need 7 to 10 business days to investigate." 7 to 10 business days. My rent was due in 5. By Wednesday, my landlord slipped a letter under my door. Lease terminated for falsified background information. I stared at it, reading the words over and over. Falsified? I'd lived there 4 years. I called him. "Mr. Leone, there's been a mistake," he interrupted, voice cold. "A woman claiming to be your previous employer said you were fired for inappropriate behavior." She faxed me the paperwork. My throat closed. "That's not true." "None of it's true." "Well," he said, "it's already released. You have 72 hours to vacate." I hung up and sank to the floor, the room spinning. I had $120 cash, frozen accounts, no job, and nowhere to go. My best friend Hannah, a nurse I'd known since college, picked up on the first ring. "Jules, what's wrong? You sound like you're underwater." "They're trying to destroy me," I whispered. "My family." "It's them," she didn't laugh. She didn't tell me I was paranoid. She just said, "Pack a bag. You're staying with me." At midnight, I stood outside my apartment with 2 suitcases and the ghost of my old life behind me. As I looked up at the windows, my windows, a car idled at the end of the block. Headlights off. The silhouette in the driver's seat raised a phone and flashed a camera. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside Hannah's apartment made my heart stutter. A passing car, the elevator ding, a door slamming down the hall. I kept replaying that flash from the car window. It hadn't been my imagination. Someone was watching me. By morning, I was sitting at Hannah's tiny kitchen table, staring at my cold coffee. She set a plate of scrambled eggs in front of me. "Eat," she said gently. "You've had like 3 crackers in 48 hours. "I can't," I whispered. My stomach's in knots. "They're everywhere, Hannah. They're in my job, my landlord, my bank. How do you fight people who can ruin you with a phone call?" She sat across from me. "You start by documenting everything." So we did. We printed the fake texts, the emails, the bank notices. We even took photos of the eviction letter. By noon, Hannah had found a lawyer through her hospital union, Aaron Kessler, who specialized in harassment and defamation. Aaron called us that afternoon. Her voice was brisk, matter of fact. "This sounds systematic," she said. "Anonymous reports, financial interference, impersonation, all point to coordinated harassment." "Do you have any idea who might be behind it?" "My family," I said without hesitation. "My mother, my brother. They have money, connections. My mother's obsessed with control, and I humiliated her publicly." Aaron paused. "Then let's start by protecting you. File a police report, get copies of everything. I'll draft an injunction to stop any further impersonation." For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of stability, a paper wall between me and the chaos. Fragile, but something. That evening, I went to the police station. The officer behind the desk typed without looking up. "Harassment, you said?" "Yes. My accounts are frozen, my job suspended, my landlord evicted me. All from false information." "Family involved?" "Yes." He finally looked up, skeptical. "And you have proof?" "Not yet." "But I will," he shrugged. "File a report. If you get a direct threat, call 911. Paper walls." That's all they gave me. Sheets of paper stacked against a hurricane. When I got back to Hannah's, she was sitting on the couch, her face pale. "Jules, you need to see this." She turned her laptop toward me. It was a local news blog headline. "Psychologist Julia Harrington under investigation for sexual misconduct." There was my photo, my professional headshot from the hospital website, beside a caption that read, "Sources allege pattern of unethical behavior and falsified research." I stared at the screen, the words swimming. "I didn't do this," I said numbly. "I know," Hannah said softly. "But the internet doesn't care." The comment section was already alive. Knew she was fake. Aaron didn't sugarcoat. If your family has money and connections, they'll hide behind proxies. But eventually, people like that make mistakes. We just need one. That night, Hannah cooked pasta and poured 2 glasses of wine. You have to eat, she said. And you have to keep breathing. I nodded, but the fork felt heavy. My mother wants me to crawl back. I can feel it. She's always wanted control, what I wear, who I date, where I live. When I got into grad school, she told people it was their donation that got me in. I used to think she was just insecure. Now I think she's dangerous, Hannah finished. The word hung there, ugly and true. The next day, Aaron called again. Julia, I found something, she said. Your parents filed a civil suit against you last week in Middlesex County. Defamation and emotional distress. I nearly dropped the phone. They're suing me? For what? They're claiming you slandered them publicly, said things that hurt their reputation. They want $75,000 in damages? I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. They destroyed my life and now they're playing the victims? Exactly, Aaron said. This is classic deflection, but we'll counter. Their own harassment record will crush that case. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. Why were they doing this? What was the point? Then I remembered something from months ago. My grandmother's will. She'd mentioned over Christmas that she planned to split her estate evenly between her grandchildren. My mother had been furious. Mother doesn't know what she's doing, she'd said. That money will just end up wasted if Julia gets her hands on it. And suddenly, everything aligned like tumblers in a lock. It wasn't just control. It was money. They wanted to make me look unstable, unfit, so I'd lose my inheritance. I called Grandma's house that evening. Her caregiver, an older man named Walter, answered in a whisper. Ms. Harrington, your grandmother's been moved to a private care facility. Your mother made the arrangements last week. What? She was healthy. Walter hesitated. Your mother claimed your grandmother's cognition was declining. Said she needed guardianship. I didn't believe it, but she had the paperwork. Guardianship. My pulse hammered. That meant Mom controlled her assets and could rewrite the will. When I hung up, I was shaking. I told Aaron everything. Then that's the motive, she said. They're not just ruining you out of spite. They're building a legal case to prove you're unstable so they can disinherit you. I stared out the window. The Boston skyline washed in cold twilight. So how do I fight that? By proving they're the ones unstable, Aaron said. We hit them where it hurts. Evidence, witnesses, a restraining order. They wanted to erase you. Let's make sure they're the ones exposed. That night, as Hannah slept on the couch, I opened my laptop and began compiling everything. Emails, letters, fake posts, legal filings. Every lie. Every weapon they'd used. If they wanted war, they'd chosen the wrong daughter. The courthouse smelled like old paper and anxiety. I sat between Aaron and Hannah, my palms slick with sweat, my heart beating too fast for the quiet room. On the opposite bench sat my parents, Elizabeth and Charles Harrington, polished and composed, like they were attending a country club brunch rather than the hearing to determine whether they'd stalked and defamed their own daughter. My mother gave me a small, tight smile. The kind she used when she thought she was 2 steps ahead. Julia, she said sweetly, you look tired, darling. This stress is aging you, I didn't answer. Aaron rested a steadying hand on my arm. Let her talk, she whispered. She's digging her own grave. When the judge entered, the air stiffened. Aaron presented everything. The anonymous emails, the fake messages, the frozen bank accounts, the news smear. All traced back to IP addresses connected with Elizabeth Harrington's household, she said, sliding over the documentation. We even have a voice analysis confirming that the caller who impersonated Julia to her bank was male, consistent with Ryan Harrington, the defendant's son. Mom's lawyer objected. Circumstantial. Aaron's gaze didn't waver. Coincidence doesn't freeze a bank account or falsify medical records, counselor. This was calculated. Then she played the voicemail, the one we'd almost missed. The distorted voice that had said, You should have kept your mouth shut at dinner. The audio lab had cleaned it up. You could hear it clearly now. Ryan's voice. Mom's face didn't move, but her fingers twitched, tapping against her knee. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Harrington, do you wish to explain this? Her mask cracked. My daughter has been unstable for years, she hissed. She embarrassed our family, she lies, Enough, the judge said, tone hard. This isn't about embarrassment. This is about harassment, identity fraud, and defamation. For the first time, my father spoke. Quiet, exhausted. Elizabeth, stop, please! She turned on him, venomous. You think you're better? You let her walk all over us, Charles. She's a liar. The judge banged the gavel. Order. I didn't look at her again. I just watched the truth unfold like an unmasking. The glossy facade she'd built all her life finally crumbling under fluorescent light. By the end of the hearing, the judge issued a temporary restraining order. My parents and Ryan were forbidden from contacting me or approaching my residence or workplace. Violation would result in arrest. Mom glared at me as the deputies escorted her out. You'll regret this, she said. You think that lawyer will save you? You're nothing without us. I stood, meeting her eyes. You're wrong. I'm finally something without you. Outside the courthouse, Aaron squeezed my shoulder. We'll follow up with a civil suit for damages. You've got a paper trail a mile long. They won't recover from this. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow, like a battlefield after the smoke clears. That night, Hannah and I sat on her balcony, the city lights soft and far below. Do you think it's over? She asked. I shook my head. People like my mother don't stop because they lose. They stop because they run out of leverage. A week later, Aaron called. You were right. Your grandmother's financial advisor reached out. Elizabeth filed for emergency guardianship the same day she lost in court. But the judge denied it, said your grandmother's competent. And she knows everything now. Everything. 2 days later, I got a handwritten note in the mail. Unmarked envelope, shaky handwriting. Julia, I'm so sorry for what my daughter has done. I've amended my will. The house, the trust, the foundation, it's all yours. Not because of money, but because you still have a conscience. Love, Grandma Margaret. I sat at the kitchen table, the letter trembling in my hands. It wasn't about inheritance anymore. It was about survival, about truth outliving cruelty. For the first time in months, I slept without fear. But peace didn't last long. 3 weeks later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Julia. My brother's voice came, low and cold. Mom's had a stroke. For a long time, I just sat there holding the phone. The sounds of the city blurred outside my window. Sirens, wind, the low hum of traffic. But all I could hear was Ryan's voice echoing through my head. Mom's had a stroke. Every instinct from the old days, before the lawsuits, before the lies, flared up. The version of me who still believed being a good daughter meant saving everyone wanted to grab my coat, get in the car and drive straight to Mass General. But the other voice, the one I'd fought to find, whispered, And what happens then, Julia? What hospital? I finally asked. Mass General, Ryan said. She's stable, but it's bad. She's been asking for you. I waited, then said, She asked, or you want her to have someone to manipulate again? Silence, then quieter. She's different now. You should come. I hope she gets better, I said. But I'm not coming, he exhaled hard. You can't still hate her. I don't, I said, surprised by how true it sounded. I just don't owe her anything anymore. Then I hung up. That night I called Grandma Margaret. She already knew. Your brother rang me too, she said. Elizabeth's stable, but angry she hasn't heard from you. Don't let guilt pull you backward, sweetheart. Illness doesn't erase cruelty. I know, I said softly. But it's strange. I don't feel angry. I just feel... Done. That's peace, Grandma said. You've earned it. 2 months passed. I moved into a new apartment in Providence, took a position with a non-profit counseling service, and started building a life that was quiet A year later, I filmed a new video for my small YouTube channel, The Courage to Walk Away. I sat in front of a soft lamp, wearing no makeup, the city faint behind me through the window. "Hi, I'm Julia Harrington," I said. "If you've followed my story, you know what I've survived. But this isn't a revenge story, it's about freedom. Real freedom doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it's quiet. It's getting through the day without checking your phone for an apology that'll never come." I paused, then smiled a little. If you're watching this wondering if it's okay to let go of family that hurts you, yes, it is. You don't have to keep burning yourself to keep them warm. I looked into the camera. Please like, share, and subscribe if you believe that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. I ended the recording, closed the laptop, and sat in the silence for a while. Outside, the city glowed in the distance, steady and indifferent. Hannah texted me a picture of her newborn daughter. "Meet Lila, she's perfect." Grandma sent a message too. "Proud of you, kiddo. You broke the cycle." I touched the faint scar on my wrist from when I'd once worn that pearl bracelet every day, believing it made me part of something that mattered. Now, I didn't need symbols. I walked to the balcony, felt the breeze against my face, and realized I didn't just survive them. I'd built something beautiful out of their wreckage. Somewhere in Boston, my mother was alive, wealthy, and still angry. But I wasn't her mirror anymore. I whispered to the night, "You don't get to own me, not ever again." And for the first time in years, the words didn't sound like defiance. They sounded like peace.